if I can't beat them, if I beat them, I beat them anywhere, so.
Have you guys looked? Do you guys know who the judges are yet?
You know what? To tell you the truth, I never get involved in the selection of judges. I really don't care. No, I really don't. I really don't, because I believe if I'm gonna start getting involved in assessing judges and picking judges or calling the athletic commissions and say, hey, by the way, I have a problem with this judge or I have a problem with that ref. I mean, that's sort of like a bit of a slippery slope.
Right. Then they'll start favoring your guy. That's what you
no,
want.
I don't want to. I think this is the selection of the officials is the job of the athletic commissions, and if the athletic commissions are going to do a poor job over and over again, guess what? I won't go back there anymore. So they better do a good job. And I want to see, as a boxing fan, the guy who wins gets the decision. That's what I want. And if I'm going to go somewhere where the athletic commission doesn't know how to pick and assign the judges and the referees, then they have to change the athletic commission, or I won't go back. But in Texas, I don't have a problem with Texas. I think Big Greg is doing a terrific job. They have great judges, and I'm sure everything will be fair.
Richard, could you share with us how are ticket sales looking, and what's the kind of house we could expect on fight night?
A big house. It's Cherry's World, and that's what they say. Everything is bigger in Texas, and it will be a big crowd. It will be a big crowd. I know as well that there is a tremendous amount of people from Monterrey, Mexico, coming. Big, strong ticket sales from Mexico. A lot of people said, you mentioned it before, that it's the guy's hometown. But I have to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you actually going to have, in the end of the day, actually I would probably even bet on that, but you're going to have a crowd which is evenly split between Spence and Garcia. So I don't think it's going to be a hometown favorite. Spence. Mikey Garcia has a lot of fans all over the place.
What's going to be capacity for this?
Well, I think they're going to set it up somewhere in the 67, 80,000.
Okay. Do you know how many you guys have sold so far?
I don't.
Do you think it'll be comparable to the crowds Pacquiao had in Canelo?
For sure, yes.
There's a different kind of buzz for this fight. I've had family members that don't traditionally watch boxing, but they've seen the face-to-face on Sundays. We haven't had that network exposure for a pay-per-view event. What type of effect do you think that's going to have on it?
Well, I think it has a big effect, and I was actually just looking at the ratings this morning. Fox is doing these all access or 24/7s, basically these shoulder programmings, right? And the ratings they're getting there are unbelievable. There's a huge exposure on Fox, starting with the press conference, which was televised nationally on Channel 11. That never happened. And then you have these countdown shows, which traditionally on a Showtime or on HBO did 80, 100,000 homes. You have like millions of people watching these shows. And I think Fox is doing a terrific job in telling the story about these two fighters and about the fight. So I do believe that if you have a Fox, a free over-the-air network involved in boxing, that elevates the sport. I think that's the biggest story in 2019, that you have a Fox putting their weight behind boxing. And we see what that means for other sports. When we see, most recently UFC, you saw with UFC how when UFC got involved with Fox, how it elevated the sport of mixed martial arts, and how it elevated UFC, ultimately leading to an over $4 billion sale. And before that we've seen it when they got involved with the NBA and with the football league and NFL and all these other sports. So I do believe it elevates the sport, and it brings the general market to the sport, and I think that's what we're going to see here with this pay-per-view. When De La Hoya, when Mayweather and Pacquiao, Mayweather and McGregor did these huge numbers, a lot of people said, these records are never going to be broken. And back then I sort of thought well, it's going to be difficult to break, but I wouldn't say never. But when this year Fox decided to get involved in the pay-per-view business, a free over-the-air network involved in pay-per-view, that is exactly the kind of platform which will help to break these pay-per-view records. Because now you're not only going to market anymore to a premium subscription base clientele, meaning with Showtime and with back before that with HBO, which are in like 20, 30, 40 million homes. You're going to be market these events to the general market, and I think that's going to attract fight fans. And I think this is the story of 2019. Fox involved in pay-per-view. That's a huge deal.
Now,
That's fantastic. ESPN has kind of followed your suit in trying to
I think
bring in your competitors.
ESPN, I agree with you. ESPN, and Bob said that maybe because with ESPN involved that you have a better pay-per-view platform because you really market towards the sports fans. And I understand his point. I would say to that when you have a fight like Garcia and Spence, boxing fans know about it, sports fans know about it, but the general market doesn't really know about it. So I think if you can market towards the general market, it just opens up the floodgates as it relates to pay-per-view. And that's the advantage a Fox has compared to an ESPN.
Now, you're a finance guy. Does Fox see a benefit in the low cost to produce a boxing card as opposed to licensing rights for other major leagues and the sponsorship dollars that are going to come in? Is there a benefit to cost factor there?
Well, I'm sure you would have to ask them, but if you look at the cost of boxing compared to the cost of any other sport, I mean, it's like day and night. And but it's sort of like a bit of curve, because you're not going to be able to attract overnight sponsors, and that's really the key. You look at the NFL, you look at NBA, they have all these sponsors. With boxing, when boxing was sort of like left the wide world of sports, ABC, and went on Showtime and on HBO, it sort of like shrank the audience, it shrank the exposure, and it's both of those premium subscription networks are commercial-free networks. So as a result, the sport to a large extent lost its sponsors, with the exception of maybe the beer sponsors, which were happy to have the logo on there and the name on the truss and so on. But other sponsors were lost. And now, with boxing being back on network television, on ESPN, and doing the ratings they do, that PPC on Fox is producing over and over and over better ratings than UFC did on Fox. Okay? And so that is the basis to attract general market sponsors, some of those blue chip brands, to boxing again, because now they see that boxing works, it attracts a great audience, and not just the older demographics, the younger demographics as well. So I think you start seeing sponsors coming back. And as sponsors are coming back, it will elevate the entire sport of boxing.
These consistent fight cards help, right? These consistent fight cards help, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, look at the
yeah.
boxing. I mean, there's going to be a great card this weekend at the Dignity Health Center here in Los Angeles, StubHub on Fox, Channel 11, and FS1 as well with the prelims. I mean, a great card. Two of my guys are on Fox as well. One of them is Efe Ajagba, the big Nigerian heavyweight, the big knockout puncher, and Emantis Stanionis against Sammy Vasquez. A great fight. So, the commitment Fox has to boxing almost week after week after week, it's unbelievable. And the ratings speak for themselves, because believe me, if the ratings wouldn't be there, Fox wouldn't be interested. But Fox sees the results they're getting, and then you put those ratings and the results and you compare them with what it costs. So from a bang for the buck, as they say, bang for the buck, boxing programming on network television is the best deal in town.
Do you think